happy to share with you a brief presentation. Hope everybody can see it. So basically, the objective of today from my side was to do a very quick recap of things that we might have spoken about together in the past, in the previous weeks and days. But maybe having them written down could be useful as also as a reminder. Again, my objective here is not to teach you how to do your job, but eventually to share a bit of experience and perspective from different sides. So I'd like it to be a very open conversation. This doesn't want to be one directional, nor to, let's say, centralize the perspective. Every place is different, of course, and actually that's a very important point to talk about. So it's just a way to start the conversation, in my opinion. So producing and selling, of course, products could be a very important next step for many labs. So that's why I collected these suggestions in the presentation, and I'm happy to share it with you. So this is part, of course, of the Internet of Production program. I might not be the best person to speak about the project. There's people way more involved than me, but I guess that everybody knows it and knows all the partners. So I will not spend too much time on this. Just two notes on my side and why I'm here talking about what I'm talking about. I started as a product and industrial designer, so my job was, and it has been for a while, to create products. And the fact that you focus on creating products is not just a technical skill, it's mainly a mix between a technical and psychological, a lot about design and ideating new things is the psychology of the users and what motivates the users to do what it does or what she does. In the last 12 years, more or less, I coordinated 3 Fab Labs. I've been Fab Academy instructor, being part of the networks in various ways. So I got the chance to see what many labs around the world are doing. I recently checked it, and again, in the last decade or so, I got the chance to do projects in 40 different countries. So this gave me the opportunity to understand the differences and the diversity of the network. I'm also a professor in digital fabrication and industrial production. So I've seen both, let's say, small scale custom products and large scale industrial products, as well as doing a bit of research with a research center in Italy about sustainability. So I can say I can bring, let's say, diversities in perspectives. It's not just one point of view of a single role. The project involves different capacity building packages. I'm sure you're aware of this. In this case, is a bit in between the additive manufacturing and the business model, but it includes, of course, also the market and how to get in contact with people and understand what they need. So the question is, how might we, as we like to say as designers, produce desirable products in makerspaces? Of course, there's technologies, and there's technical abilities and skills, but those are kind of obvious. So I didn't even mention them, and I mentioned just the things that we tend to forget. So to do something that is desirable, so someone is willing to buy it, we need to know exactly who that person is. Without that piece of knowledge, it's impossible to reach them. A second point is that we can find methods that comes from different areas. So they are not perfect for what we care about. But still, they are very useful to understand how other people face similar problems and complexity. And in the end, we need to know the market. That means, let's say, a mix between the users that we can reach and the context where these users moves. Context is going to be one of the topics we speak the most because it's really crucial. So if we want to find solutions, design things that are effective and desirable as we defined it, where should we start to look? Where can we find the knowledge that we need to make these products? Traditionally, we look for makers. So many of you might know him. Daniela is a brilliant mind, founder of a startup that produces amazing DIY machines that goes from laser cutters to large format 3D printers or milling machines. And in my personal opinion, he's a genius. There's no doubts about it. But his capabilities are very often focused on the technical aspects. And as makers, we might not be as good as him, but we know already that area. So yes, of course, he's fundamental, but he's not the only model we should look for or at. We speak about design. Sometimes we think, okay, let's talk with designers or about design with artists and creative minds. If you're a bit familiar with the design world, you recognize this guy. He's Philip Stark, one of the most famous designer in particular in the last decade. But again, the traditional way of doing design is not what we do. We are not looking for fancy, shiny product necessarily. We are looking for something that is relevant for the people around us, the people that we can reach. Most of all, we sometimes forget that there's an entire sector of people that understood and studied how to explain how to sell something. Sometimes marketing is seen as something negative because it pushes unwanted products on people. And in that case, of course, it is something negative. But they also studied a lot why something is useful, why something is bought, and even more important, why something potentially useful has never been sold. So referring to professors and researchers in the marketing and business field, it's actually something that we should learn to do more and more. So let's start to see how the lab can become a production center. What do we need? So a very famous quote from a professor of mine when I was in university is, nobody ever bought a car. And the first time he came in the class and said it, everybody was kind of doubtful about it. Later on, he explained what he meant. And that's actually a concept that stayed in my mind since then. People don't look for the object per se. They look for the benefit that the object can bring. So you don't buy a car, you buy a way to move around or a way to bring your family in vacation or a way to be agile in the traffic of a city or a way to move without consuming too much fuel. All these things are different things. So if I'm thinking about using as little fuel as possible, an alternative to a car is a bicycle or an electric scooter or a motorbike. If I'm thinking about moving my entire family in vacation, One way could be a car, another one could be an SUV or public transportation if available, or taxis. So keep in mind that we shouldn't think about objects as categories. We don't make vases, we don't make tools, we don't make keychains or gadgets. We make decorations for someone's houses. We make stories for someone dinners. So the things we create is connected to values that are not always that obvious. If we think about cars, these two, technically speaking, belongs to the same category, but nobody that would buy the first one would be interested in the second, and vice versa, for different reasons, but that's the case. So these two are not competing over the same market. They're not trying to reach the same target. Therefore, these two don't belong in the same category. This is how we should think about what we want to make. Now, in this video,
Not showing
no
audio.
audio. Okay, sorry. Let me redo that. Thanks, Steve, for telling me. I probably have to share it again. Share sound, yes. Sorry about it. Okay, let's try again. It's just a few seconds.
We decided that the way we teach marketing is at the core of what makes motivation difficult to achieve. The most helpful way we've thought of it so far is that we actually hire products to do things for us. And understanding what job we have to do in our lives for which we would hire a product is really the key to cracking this problem of motivating customers to buy what we're offering.
So this video is actually from Harvard professor, if I remember correctly. And he became famous because of different work he did. But one very important was this metaphor that we don't buy products, we hire them to do a specific job. So if we realize what we are hiring the product to do, or better, what our potential clients are hiring the product to do, then it's easier for us to make that product fitting the request. The video is longer, of course. I just cut a small piece, so I suggest you to have a look at the rest as well. This is something I often think when we have to design a solutions, because again, sometimes we assume that people think the same way we do, and that's not always the case. So it's very important to be able to explore and speak to them and involve them and understand what is the deeper motivation. So in design, very often it's used the term user-centered design. It means let's keep in mind that our user is at the center of the process. We don't find the technological solutions for, we find solutions for the users. So starting from the users means that we really have to keep in mind why someone is looking for something. And very often a person has more than one need at the same time, but we should prioritize them. So I give you an example. This is a product designed a few years ago by the lab where I was the coordinator, and foundations that take care of kids with physical and cognitive disabilities. The need in this case of the parents, the first most obvious need is that this kind of bikes were very expensive, in particular because they were imported and it wasn't available locally. So it was easier for them to make it in a fab lab and design it, and it could have been done more custom to the specific physical needs of Lorenzo, that is the kid you see in the picture. Now, as makers, what we thought was, yeah, sure, we design it, then you can come here and you can make it and you can paint it the way you want and you can assemble it yourself together with Lorenzo, so it's even more engaging and so on. Completely forgetting that to them, that was something very difficult to handle. So the therapist told us, keep in mind that the family of these kids very often has complex lives, and time for them is an issue. You have to bring the kids to school, to therapy. You have to take care of them 24/7. So yes, of course, it would be nice to be able to do it, but for them is way better to pay someone and get the final result, not because they're not interested in that, but because it's too complex for them to manage this as well, to learn how to do things and to guarantee quality and so on. So that stayed in my mind because before that, I always thought, yeah, I mean, making stuff is super cool. Why people shouldn't desire to do that? And we are happy to open the lab and to share the lab and have people around here. So, and it's cheap and it's fun. But then again, from that moment on, I started to pay attention to other users that we were interacting with. They were happy maybe to be involved up to a certain point, but there was a limit for them, both in terms of skills and in terms of time. This was the same with companies as well. When we work in innovation programs with companies that were pretty big clients sometimes, we wanted to involve them, but over a certain level, it was just too much. And from being something we did as a sort of way to care about them and understand them better, it became something tiring for them or time consuming. So again, it's important to figure out exactly how much we should involve the user and what's really its need. Is it to get access to tools, or is it to have a solution and someone that guarantees that that solution works? That's another big important point we will go back to later on. So there are two strategies when you sell something, let's say the push strategy and the pull strategy. Push strategy means that we tell to people why, in our opinion, that object is cool or it's something they should buy. And this is very common within passionate people. So we love what we do. Therefore, as soon as we manage to do something super complex that we are proud of, we say, hey, why don't you buy it? It's super cool. I 3D printed it and it's very effective. And from their perspective, that's not what they're looking for. What they're looking for is an answer to their specific problems. So we can design things that looks amazing and that they are very well made. But if this answers to no need from the users, or we are not capable of explaining them what this is answering to, it's going to be very, very hard to convince them to buy it. So the pull strategy works the other way around, of course. So as a user, I might want a spare part, and I want it reliable, and I want it delivered quickly. So if that's the case, and I can provide that, I'm sure that the user is going to be very happy to buy it. A fun example that happened to me a while ago, I'm sorry it's in Italian, but I hope you maybe recognize the website. It's a place where you can buy different products. Some are new, some are used. And I was looking for a spare part for a metal saw that was impossible to find on the producer website. So I checked it in every possible places, and I found it here. I bought a couple, and when it got to my place, I realized that it was 3D printed in TPU. But I swear, even if you check the description, it's written nowhere, because nobody is looking for a 3D printed belt. Everybody is looking for a belt. So if you guarantee me that it works, I don't care how it's made. And this guy sold 566 belts, 10 euros each. It's 5,000 euros worth of sale just on one single product. And modeling this probably took an hour or so. And printing this probably takes another hour. It was printed with a very large nozzle. So the investment was reasonable for the money he made. And again, whenever someone orders it, you print it and you ship it. So it's not that it costs you anything to have it online. So this is just to speak about something that is very common within us, that is the maker syndrome. The maker syndrome is, you might recognize it when you speak with a friend and he says, I saw this project, I can make it, it's super cool. And if you ask them, okay, but why should you make it? What's the reason? What's the benefit? They often don't know how to answer. And if you ask them, okay, who are you making for? Who's the user? Why this person is looking for this specific project? Very often is another, let's say, unanswered question. Because we are so passionate about what we do, sometimes we forget that it should be useful for someone else as well, or equally interesting at least. Another point that in my mind it's underrated is that we need to learn how to communicate who we are. We will see it later that one of the main assets to be able to make a product is actually leveraging and building a network. And a network is created because people resonate with each other. They believe in the same things. They value the same things. So it's very important to be able to communicate effectively who we are and what we do. There is a very famous speech that I will share with you in a second, where this consultant and speaker called Simon Sinek, many of you might know him, says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And then what you do is just justifying them, giving them an opportunity to buy what you are, what you believe in, support you in your way of doing things. So this is the video. We will not have time to see it, but it's in the presentation. And again, it's a very famous one. What he's saying, okay, he's a consultant for big companies in average, so his way of speaking might not be so familiar to us. But what he says is very, very sharp. And basically the point is, if we speak about what we do, there's 1,000 people doing the same things. We produce vases. Okay, we are not the only one. We produce educational kits. You can buy them on the market. So if you speak only about what you can do, the risk is that you say, I can do anything. And anything means that the other person is probably thinking if you can do anything, you are probably not good at anything. So what he says is that we should start to communicate who we are and what we do, starting from why we do what we do, because that's where people get passionate. And at that point, they will either support us fully or understand that they are not interested. But if they support us fully, these are key partners that we keep for a long time. His theory is synthesized in the golden circle, that is this graph. He's basically saying that the deeper part of our mind, the emotional one, is strongly driven by why we do what we do. And when that part is clear, and when we speak about that, then we engage people. So giving them extra information about how the product is made or what the product is just reassuring them on the rational level that they are doing the right choice somehow. Another important things about communication is that there's a sort of paradox. If you create something that is full of technology and very articulated and very complex, the suggestion is try to simplify the way you speak about it. People very often get scared about technologies, or they get suspicious, thinking that it might be too complex to use or too expensive. So very often in marketing, when you have a complex subject, you try to make it familiar. One of the best example in my mind is when the CEO of OpenAI presented OpenAI. What he was talking about and the example he was bringing was not about data analytics or advanced coding, or it was about very daily activities. You find recipes and it helps you to summarize documents and or translate things. So things that people felt like they were familiar with. On the other hand, if you have a very simple object, but that is effective, you can build a bit of magic around it. You can build a bit of communications, explaining maybe the complexity of getting such a simple object. Simplifying things is almost as complex as create complex one. So understand how we speak about the things we do is almost as important as making them. So I purposefully avoided the technical parts in this presentation. And I focused more in general aspects. Technical part means I'm not going to speak about how to polish a 3D printed part to get it smooth and shiny. Because I think that those aspects are either well known or easily achievable by just Googling things. If you're interested, we can, eventually speak a bit about that as well. But in general, I think it's more important to understand the complexity of creating a product. So here I collected some that are my personal rules when I think about creating something new or organizing the activities in the lab to be able to produce things. Again, it's a personal view and I'm happy to share it with you. And I'm also happy to hear from you what you think about it. So too often I realized when I was working in Fab Labs that I was getting too tired. So I started to think about the marathon rule. When you do a marathon, very often during the training, they tell you that you shouldn't run too fast. It's not a sprint. It's not something where you give everything you have in 100 meters. It's something that takes time and it should be sustainable for a very long time. So the rule is called the talk rule. You should be able to talk and speak with people while running. That means that you're not consuming more than what you have. If you're not, it means that you are doing too much. And I took it as a metaphor because managing a lab and create sustainable products and sustainable models is not something you do once and then it's done. It's something you have to do daily for the rest of the time you work there. So it's really something we should learn to look at as a long-term activity. To do that, my personal suggestion is what's called the 80-20 rules. So 4 days a week, you should have activities that are paid. They might not be the most fun activities, they might not be the most innovative activities, but it's something that guarantees you that it's possible to sustain the lab on the long run without ending up out of breath. But keep a bit of time for yourself. Keep 1 day a week, even half a day a week, but keep a bit of time for exploring new things and being innovative and work on impactful projects and test out your own ideas. Because this is what keeps us motivated, keeps us happy, keeps us engaged. So we shouldn't lose track of that. Now, this rule is very difficult to follow, of course, and sometimes it's not that we decide to don't have paid activities, but it's a way to keep track of what's going on. At least we are aware that there's a problem or that it might become a problem soon. We might not have tools to solve it immediately, but being aware is very important. We shouldn't normalize things that are not normal. What happened to me in particular at the beginning was that because of the enthusiasms, I was involving myself in every possible project. And I ended up working Saturdays and Sundays and trying to make things work when they were not meant to work. Probably that wasn't a good idea. And I realized that there should be a way to measure or to understand or to decide if something it's something that I should invest my time in or not. So what I did was to make a simple checklist, and whenever there was a new opportunity, I was going through the checklist and see if I score high in something or at least decently in more than one field. That gave me an idea if it made sense to invest time in that project or not. So of course, if a project is paid, the value is the money you get out of it, and it could be later on used to pay the rent or to pay machines or to pay maintenance or to pay people. So in that case, the value is easy to see and also easy to measure. Sometimes that's not the case. So is it helping me to build skills and be recognized for those skills? Is it giving me important connections, maybe with local partners or public administrations or future possible clients, as it's written in the next one? So whatever it is your list, try to summarize it somewhere and keep it in mind. The evaluation will never be automatic because it really changes based on the period, but it gives you a bit of coherency and helps you to don't overdo things. And that's because whenever we overdo things, we are just borrowing from our future self. It's not something that can be sustained on the long run. It's good to have a bit of stress, to have a bit of adrenaline that runs in the blood and keeps us active and engaged and enthusiastic about what we do. But too much is just too much. And again, is something that you pay later on. So it's just not worth it. Another maybe the one of the biggest assets together with the network is the team you build. Now, big companies can afford to have people that are not fully engaged or highly active in the network's activities, while small labs like ours really need to find the right people to involve in the team. Otherwise, it's poisoning the entire company. The people I met in labs are in average amazing, so I'm not afraid of affinities in value, but I noticed that there are sometimes too little diversities in skills. So because we are makers and we make things, it's very easy for us to understand the difference between, I don't know, the person finishing by hand the product and the person modeling it with a 3D printer. And we might be tempted to find two different people to do the two different jobs if we have resources to do so. While we might underestimate the importance of having an accountant, someone wondering about commercial relationships and business strategies. And these are very diverse skills, so might not be something that only one person can do. So my suggestion is to actively try to involve yourself or surround yourself with people that are different from you. Diversity is really enriching, and we definitely need it. The local market is a big topic. Nothing works equally well everywhere in the world. We know that even big companies sometimes apply small change to fit the local market. IKEA does that for their products, so we should probably do the same. And I think that knowing what's needed locally, it's one of the key aspects. In particular, if we want to step out by the usual activities such as training. Training is needed everywhere. You have to do it in a different way, of course, but at least you know that that's needed. When we speak about products, the only way, in my opinion, is to co-design with people. So you have to leverage on your network, contact them, speak with them, understand what they need, and involve them in the process. So this could really help you to figure out brilliant ideas that might be needed. Talking about the network, I really like this quote from Kevin Kelly. He's the founding editor of Wired magazine, if I remember correctly. And he was saying that it's better to have 1,000 people that really loves you, that are strongly passionate about what you do, than a million that kind of like you. So people that understand the value of what we do will support us, will speak well about us. The value is not necessarily what we consider the value. So it's not our technical skills or our machines or our production capabilities. The value for them might be you are good at listening and try to understand what we really need. Or you don't try to push on us solutions you already have. Or you are faster than others, or you are more reliable than other. You always answer to a call when we call you, or whatever the point is for them. But if you find this kind of people, those are gonna be your strongest marketing assets, and also people that will call you when they need something or when they know someone that needs something. So it's super, super important to work on that. Building the network is a huge topic, and it's something that partially happens naturally and partially we have to work to make it happen. So we have to be also a bit pushy on that. Now, the key point when you make a product, as we said before, nobody buys a car, people buys the value that the car brings. So what's the value of an object? First of all, the value is the value for the user. So again, what is valuable for us is not valuable for them, or might not be. And figuring out what they really want is key to develop something useful. A few years ago, we did a project with some doctors to innovate the way things were done in hospitals. And we started thinking about, yeah, sure, the 3D printed prosthetics and devices, medical devices, and customized and 3D scan and so on. And they said, no, guys, my problem is that I don't have time to speak with patients because my life is too busy and I'm too tired. So their need was completely different from ours. And when we started caring about what was their problem, we ended up working on how the communications happen in the hospital and writing software to manage emails. So it seems maybe less fascinating than 3D printed prosthetics, but for them it was way more valuable. So I said it 1,000 times, but I will never get tired of this. Keep in mind your user. Keep in mind what they need, what they are struggling with, what could be helpful for them. That is probably different from what we would like to give them. There are different kinds of benefits. In some cases, is a hard benefit, a technical benefit. So a very well-designed product like this, the open flexure microscope, has some obvious benefits. The precision, the costs, the flexibility, the adaptability. So those things are easy to explain, easy to understand. But sometimes the benefit is not that obvious. So if you involve a user in developing something, maybe part of the benefit is emotional, is the empowering of the process. So they might be happy to be finally part of the solution and not consider the problem to fix. And this is really on the human level. It's an emotional attachment to products as well that will make them last longer or used for longer. Whenever you work on something, you try to sell something, of course, you're not the only one doing that. So figuring out what makes you unique, it's extremely valuable. Unique means that if you take an existing design and print it, your uniqueness is very limited. If you have some specific skills in managing co-design sessions, well, that's already something that you might be one of the few capable of doing it. I suggest you not to leverage too much on the uniqueness of the machines, because buying equipment and maintain equipment is costly. So probably I think it's more important to like stress the value of the network you can access to, or your knowledge or your approach of doing things, or the guaranteed quality of things you do. Now, last thing, it's a bit late, so I will try to speed up. It's just a set of tools that might be useful for you to do what we described previously. First of all, keep in mind what you're paid for. Whenever you get a project and the project gives you a certain amount of money, the reason why you get that amount of money is not because of the project, it's because you are giving to your clients some kind of benefits. Figuring out exactly what's the benefit you give them is not easy at all. It's we might think that it's quality, and maybe for them is managing the complexity and taking out of their table some tasks that they had to do. So it's really about figuring out what's their pain points, what are the things that you're solving. A second important point, and whenever you explain the project, everybody will have some doubts, and you can work on prevent them. Are there any audio problems? Okay, thank you. So Nelson, probably might be connection on your side. Okay, I will go on then. So whenever you speak with a client, quite likely he will think, you will have some doubts. In particular, if it's the first time you work together. So if you have the possibility to, or if you figure out what their doubts are, you can prepare answers before they formalize the doubts. This prevention mode, it's very, very important, because in the moment they formalize it, you are defending yourself. But if you answer their doubts before they formalizing it, you are not, you're just explaining the value of what you're doing. So typical doubts are like reliability, cost, quality, but it could also be, I don't want to, I don't know, I want my boss to appreciate what I'm doing, so I need communication material to prove that I'm doing something good. If you don't think about this and you don't provide it, for that person, it might not be as valuable as it could have been. So just try to be sensitive to the person in front of you. It's something I learned over the years, and it took me a while, and I'm not perfect, of course, but I noticed that it was very, very useful to develop this skill. So about network, we mentioned it multiple times. Network is probably the most effective and important asset you have. So network, again, it doesn't mean to know 1 million people. It means that 1,000 people understood exactly what you do. And whenever they speak about you, they say, okay, these guys are amazing because they do this in this way. And I did that with them and it was super cool. So network is personal relations. It's almost as a friend. So take your time to map it. For instance, with some labs we started doing it. Write down every people that you might be able to do project with. This gives you a list of people to call and have a chat and see how things are going, and maybe some project will pop up from that. So it happened to me. I called a friend asking for a favor. We didn't spoke to each other for a while, and some students of mine needed his technology. So I asked him if they could use it for free. So I was literally asking for a favor. But because we started to speak, and I asked him, okay, what are you up to? Any new nice project you're working with? He said, yeah, there's these things I have no idea how to handle. And I said, it looks super cool. I can help you out with that if you want. And he was more than happy to have someone supporting him on the technical aspect of a project he was struggling with. This is another interesting exercise that we did with some, or at least we started with some of you. It's called the speculative design. Basically, you imagine what your lab could be in 2030. And this is because, as a Latin philosopher said, there is no wind useful for the sailor that doesn't know where to go. So if you have an idea of what you would like to achieve, then it could be easier. And the exercises is basically, imagine that you are in 2030 and you just received email with the notification that you won a very important prize. This for you is a lifetime achievement. You are super happy. You call everybody immediately. You're excited about it. Okay, what's the price about? What would make you satisfied and compensate for all the efforts you did during the years to get to that point? Now, this helps to build a personal perspective, and then this can be shared with the people in the lab and together build a lab perspective. As we said before, people should be complementary in the skills, but similar in vision. So if within the same lab you have very different visions, this could be a problem. Because we start from real need of real people, and we do that through co-design when we create objects. One of the tools that could be useful is a need journal. A need journal is just a simple table. You can find one on the FabCare website to keep track of what happens in your daily life and what are the problems that you have in your daily life. You give this to your clients, or you give it to friends that's you want to interview or understand what kind of products that might need and so on. And from that analysis, you can start to think about solutions. Last point in this rush toward the end, I'm sorry about it. It's that nowadays we have a lot of AI tools that could be useful for us for different things. Some of those costs a bit of money. Some cost a lot of money. I suggest you to just ignore those. Some are for free, and that's of course the best solution. And they can be used in different steps of the development of an idea. A very useful way I'm using AI is as a sparring partner during brainstorming. So in particular, when I was visiting some of you, I didn't know the context locally, the needs locally. So I was just feeding into ChatGPT in that specific case, a bunch of questions that were relevant to me and collect the answer that was coming out of that. There is a process to do that, in my opinion, so you should start saying, hey, ChatGPT, don't answer to what I'm saying. Just listen and memorize. Okay, I'm here, I'm doing this, I want to achieve that. These are the things I'm struggling with. This is what I'm worried about. Let's start. Tell me every information you can find on this specific aspect of the local market. What are the most sold products? Who is looking? Can you point out needs that are unmet? Can you tell me who would like to buy this kind of product, and so on? And then you try to synthesize it. So we did this exercise together with Steve. Steve, I hope you don't mind. I picked up you as an example. And it was interesting to see what was generated. It also helped us to discuss a bit about future strategies or what to do. Some ideas were pretty weird. Some ideas were pretty cool. So it was interesting to also set or search for the local market and understand who could be partners, who could be interested in sell the products, who could where to go to show the products that were made, and so on. So it's not just ChatGPT. Very often when you start a product, you need a lot of, let's say, small services that goes from communication to graphics, to logos, to website, to presentations. Those are things that you might be able to do yourself, but sometimes they're just time consuming. I really like this website. There's an AI for that, where you can just write what you need and get, possible services that helps you with that specific topic. So that's it from my side. I just want to remind you somehow that even Neil Gershenfeld says that we are flying a plane that we are building while flying it. So this field is so new that there's no experts. There are different opinions. Some might have a bit more information than others, but again, you are the expert of your local context. And this was just to try to summarize things that hopefully would be helpful in the future. There's this video from Neil that I really like. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim. So the opposite of what's traditionally done, that is aim and fire later. But he explains how in his personal experience, a lot of super nice projects happened somehow in the opposite, let's say, order of a traditional project. And he says that it's a way to innovate things. I do believe it's true. And it was a nice way to say that we are in this together. So let's try to figure out what's the best way and what are the success cases that could be shared.